Hey, what's up, everyone? I just want to quickly share with you guys what I'm going to be doing next month in the events. So they added an SSF version of the events. If you remember in the last video, I wasn't really excited to play the events because, I was excited for what they offer. But however, from a competitive standpoint, I wasn't particularly excited because they only had a trade version of it. And I don't love the whole, people could put together 10 or 20 party groups, like big groups of people, and just funnel all that XP into one person. You could have traders and all that. And that's just not particularly interesting to me. However, GGG did, graciously add a SSF version, which I'm really excited to do. And so I spent the past couple days kind of poking around, figuring out what build I'm going to play. And yeah, after I actually talked to Tai Killer, asked him what he thought were the fastest builds. If you want to get fast, you go to the source. And he said either Bone Shatter or Cold Dot Elementalist. And as someone who does not love going into the Bone Zone, I don't really enjoy that skill or that build at all. I decided to do Cold Dot Elementalist. The thing is, I went out and I actually just looked at what people were playing. I looked up different guides. And yeah, I didn't really love what I saw. At the very least, for my goals here, I strongly felt like I could do something better for my goals anyway, just to make a fast and effective racing build that is just very fun to play. So first off is I want to talk about the leveling. The default way that Cold Dot Elementalist is currently recommended to be leveled is with Freezing Pulse into Creeping Frost into grabbing Vortex and Cold Snap after that. There was a lot there. You can watch the VOD on Twitch if you want to, or on YouTube. Actually, we're streaming on YouTube now, so that VOD is there if you want to watch that. Definitely pop by in the YouTube stream if you see it. Would love to see you guys. But yeah, the Freezing Pulse in Act 1, after doing the optimal, rolling magma leveling, I think Freezing Pulse, it's just too old. It just doesn't have a place in modern Act 1 at all. It felt awful. So I strongly recommend, like, what I'm going to be doing is going into Firewalker first and doing the standard rolling magma, Holy Flame Totem setup. Gives you a really clean Act 1, and then continue on after into Frostwalker and going up after this. And this is just a single respec point later on. This way we have a very clean, solid Act 1. Respect that, go into Frostwalker later when we get Creeping Frost. So nothing after that changes in Act 2. We stay Creeping Frost, Frostbomb, and all that in Act 2. However, the big change is I didn't like the passive tree. So, I'm not calling out a specific guide, but I didn't like where the passive trees were going and what I saw. The big thing is I thought they looked kind of outdated, is what I would say. The old style to build a witch would be, do something like this, and then maybe go down here, and then maybe go down here. You could either go around the top, or you could kind of go up this way and do this. And this was the old style to build a witch. This is what everyone did. This was the default build. However, that's not really what modern builds do anymore. What we have here is much more up to date. This is much more standard for a witch build. So the modifications that I made here is I really want to go down here. And the big thing is we grab these nodes. In Act 3, we can grab Wintertide Brand. So Creeping Frost was fine, but it didn't feel amazing. Like, it was actually like pretty slow towards the end of Act 2 and early Act 3. The single target damage was pretty bad, and it just didn't feel awesome. It actually still felt worse than doing a regular rolling magma setup actually in Act 2. However, you do want to kind of synergize with the passives that you're taking. And so, we're going to have some cold nodes here. We're going to be going through. We can grab some dot multi, right? We're going to be doing that. So with Creeping Frost right here and already doing damage over time multiplier, what we want to do is go down here and rush towards Runebinder as well as the Mastery that says brands will reattach. And I'm not going to go into all the detail for how Wintertide Brand works. You can read the wiki. It's a very complex, it's probably the most complex skill in the game. But with Runebinder, as well as the Brand Mastery right here, that brands attached to a new enemy each time they activate, just dropping one Wintertide Brand per pack of monsters it'll just kill a whole pack. It's really clean. It's really fast. And in terms of just solid damage through the campaign, it's going to, we're going to unspec this later, but through the campaign, it was vastly superior to Creeping Frost. And I strongly recommend, if you're leveling any cold dot style elementalist, if you're going to be anywhere in the area of the tree, this is way better. And I took this all the way through the campaign. As you can see, I died 0 times. Really clean campaign. In SSF, I was in full solo self-found, just trash off the ground. Yeah, Wintertide Brand just carried me. It was really good. And we can actually watch a clip here of me killing Aracali. The downside to this build is it is a very button-intensive build. So you'll see on left click, I have Vortex. Right click, I don't have my cast from damage taken set up, so I'm manually casting Molten Shell right now. Right click, Frostbite. A is Frost Bomb, S is Cold Snap, and then Q is Wintertide Brand. So it's a very button intensive build, but you can see just like really pay attention to the damage here and just recall that this is SSF. This is a fresh SSF run and very, very clean, very simple, safe Aracali because she's also incredibly chilled as well from the chill. And then I'm using Skitterbots as well, giving us shock and all of that. So very, very clean, easy campaign that I loved doing. It was great. Other changes that I made to the default builds that are out there is to not go where I said before. So let's continue to illustrate right here. So the other builds recommend going down through here, grabbing these nodes, and then getting, actually, I didn't even see them grabbing the spell suppression nodes. I just saw them grabbing this and then kind of stopping. I firmly believe that any modern, particularly witch build these days, unless you can't do this, there's always builds where you can't do this, but most modern builds these days, you grab your Eldritch Battery, you grab your spell suppression, and then if you can get down here, you also grab the spell suppression. And we don't really, these are pretty low value nodes. This one is pretty good. It gives you some strength and some life. This is like 20% damage. This is like 23% damage, something like that. They're okay, but they're not incredible. And we can actually get really similar damage by going through here. The builds that I saw also didn't grab any of these nodes because they weren't going up through Eldritch Battery. And if we want to make up the damage that we missed by not going through here, we can grab these nodes. And if we want to make up the life that we missed, we grab these nodes, just to tell you guys the trade-off that we're doing as we're going through the passive tree. The big thing here is Eldritch Battery with a Divine Blessing gives us one free, effectively a free aura for an additional button press. You also solve your mana, right? You don't have to worry about running Clarity, reduce mana cost, anything like that. So yeah, Eldritch Battery, pretty much mandatory for most modern builds. Once you get going, there's plenty of builds that don't use it, I understand. But, from your default place that you're starting to build off of, you want to be asking yourself, would EB be better? And if the answer is yes, then, you shouldn't be doing the thing that you're doing. The other thing is, max spell suppression, or at least very, very close to max spell suppression, are pretty mandatory. And that's why we want to go here. And the builds that I saw did not go down here. You're going to very much struggle, at least, I'm talking from an SSF perspective. You are going to absolutely struggle capping your spell suppression in SSF without taking all of these nodes. You can go through here and you can get down here and even grab Magebane right here. That is viable, but then, you're kind of stretching yourself and you're losing access to up here. This is really much more standard from what I would want to see from a passive tree for, a spellcaster witch as well. Particularly, like, we get access to a lot of the good nodes here. Now, over here, this is very, very optional. Like I said, the Wintertide Brand is only for leveling. You're probably going to be dropping it sometime around yellow maps, maybe early red maps, and just going back to regular Creeping Frost. Because, like, the Creeping Frost Vortex Cold Snap setup is still the best. There might be a world where you layer all of them, but probably not. This is 6 passive points that you'll have to respec, and there's probably a world where you drop all of these nodes and probably grab a Cluster Jewel, something like that. Like, that's entirely possible. If you're in SSF, though, or if you're in hardcore especially, you'll probably keep, like, Discipline and Training. Holy Dominion is just really good for just getting, 12 all-res is so nice, some damage and all that. So, I think this is okay to start off, and then, you'll probably drop this a little bit later. Same thing here. Divine Judgment, right? Like, yeah, whatever pathing you want to do here. This is just, I didn't know where else to get damage right now, and then we get a Jewel Socket if we want to do that. I know this looks really bad, but this is just, like, totally optional stuff. Like I said, the real thing is we'll probably later on just grab a Cluster Jewel here, maybe even a second Cluster Jewel there, and then we'll be pretty happy. And something like this with some Cluster Jewels, right? This is level 82. We still got a lot more room for stuff that we can put points into. This is generally what I would be aiming for, in the medium term, particularly in an SSF race kind of scenario. This is just my SSF gear that I have right now. I'll throw on random example gear and I'll share a POB for you guys below. When we talk about builds and like what's good and what's bad and all that, there's a lot of egos and people fluffing around and saying they own certain tech or they own certain builds. The metaphor that I made on stream yesterday was, I think of it kind of like music, where there's certain, chord progressions, there's certain key changes, there's certain, song structures that are very standardized, and you can kind of riff on them and modify things for your own taste. But there's also some real default standard pathings that are just understood to be, that's the optimal stuff that we know right now in the game. And, sometimes you can find certain stuff that's a little bit better here and there. No one's perfect. There's always, little tweaks that you can do. You also have to just like, look, you can just add up the number of points that you invested, look up the amount of damage that you got, look up the amount of defense that you got, and just be like, you know, compare that to an alternate pathing and just, you know, that that's not as good, right? Just looking at the cold dot guides that I mostly saw, I think that this is more a direction that at least I would go. Wanted to share with you guys my thought process and my plans for next month. This little build here, I think it's gonna do very well, and I'm excited to probably go pretty hard in that event. And you know, hopefully, I would love to get top 10. I'm not holding my breath for that, but I would at least to be, you know, I want to be on the front page at least. So at least top 50. So keep my name on that front page at least. That's my goal. So yeah, let me know what events you guys are going to play or what you're interested in. I think it's going to be really cool, especially playing with the Sentinels and all that. Genuinely really excited for that. And I think there's going to be some really fun stuff. And then, yeah, can't wait for 323. Yeah, hopefully see you guys on the stream. You know, like I said at the beginning, we're streaming on YouTube now. It's been really, really fun. Yeah, have a great rest of your day.